Hi and welcome to On Two Wheels. In today's video, I give up. I give up trying to wrap my DRZ tank. Instead, I'm going to polish it. So if you've been following my rally build project, one thing that I'm doing with the bike is wrapping the whole bike in vinyl. And as part of the vinyl wrap, I was also doing the tank. Now the tank was always going to be an issue because essentially what happens is the tank is going to be breathing petrol through that, and all that petrol vapor that the tank breathes is going to be caught under the vinyl and it's going to start bubbling up. And so this did happen, and what I did to try to work around this was to cut little perforations onto the vinyl. Now that didn't really work very well either, because no matter how many perforations I left, there was always more bubbles forming. At one point I noticed that there was that many bubbles that all the bubbles eventually turned up into one big bubble and the vinyl actually looked flat. Now that would seem okay, but it's not, because essentially the vinyl is not sticking. And what's going to happen is, I'm guessing as soon as I go off-road and I get dirt on the bike and the dust starts to go under this vinyl, the whole thing is going to start coming off. So let me give you a quick picture of what the vinyl wrap with the petrol vapor caught underneath it looks like. Here I have my old vinyl, and as you can see there's like a little white film that's built up on it. So this white film is actually petrol vapor, and as soon as I took this off the bike I could smell the petrol really bad. So that means it's definitely not working, and even though there were perforations, as you can see, there's always petrol vapor that's going to build. So that brings me to my next solution. What am I going to do? So I'm going to take off all the vinyl, rub off all the glue, and I'm going to sand it with a very fine sandpaper. Some tutorials tell you to start with a 400 grit sandpaper and then work towards an 800, 1200 and then up to a 2000. But I don't want to use a sandpaper as coarse as a 400 or an 800 because it's a big tank, and then plastic is actually part of the structure. So I don't want the plastic to become any weaker, and I'd rather live with a few scratches rather than a tank that eventually cracks somewhere down the track. So I'm going to use some IPA or rubbing alcohol and take off all the glue first, and then I'm going to use the 1200 grit sandpaper. So the 1200 grit would take away all the very light surface scratches and any oxidization that's on the tank. Essentially, I'm not really losing too much plastic. If anything, I'm just smoothing things out. So after using the 1200 grit sandpaper, I'm going to use some rubbing compound. So this rubbing compound is essentially going to be the equivalent of maybe like a 2000 grit sandpaper, I guess. And that will take away that little fine white layer that was left over from the 1200 grit sandpaper. I'm going to start rubbing this with a microfiber cloth because I want to use some pressure at the beginning, but afterwards I'm going to use a buffing wheel to give it that final finish. So I've never used a buffing wheel in my life before. I've just seen it on the internet and like heard of people using it. And I wasn't too sure if I wanted to buy a buffing wheel just for this one project. It's not very expensive. It's you can get one from Bunnings for about 50 bucks, but I'm being cheap right now and I didn't want to spend that money either. So what I did was I went on Gumtree and I bought one second hand. So this was 40 bucks. Okay, I'm saving only 10 bucks, but still the guy gave me the receipt and this was purchased just a month ago. So it's almost brand new. And I figured, look, I'll use it and I might just sell it off afterwards because I don't see myself using it again in the near future. So let's start buffing. So the buffing process is really boring and it's not something you would want to watch. In fact, I was bored just doing it, but I did learn something about it. So I've never used a buffing wheel before. So I assumed that you just keep it against the surface and it will do the buffing by itself. But I later realized that it's a pressure sensitive thing. So if you do apply too much pressure, it's going to stop turning the wheel. So that's, I guess, pretty useful considering you don't want to leave scratches on the surface like a car's paint or clear coat, but on a scratched up dirt bike tank, it doesn't really matter. I'm pretty happy with the result. So if you look at the tank right now, it's got a pretty nice shine, a slight gloss, but at the same time you still see some of the scratches. So what the buffing actually did was remove that layer of oxidization on the tank, but it didn't really remove all the scratches. So I think I'm just going to learn to live with these scratches. I also have some decals that I want to put on the tank, so that might just cover up some of it, but let's see how it goes. So this whole polishing and buffing was a first time experience for me. I'm not too sure if I did it right. I'd like to hear your feedback on how I did and if you think I should have done something any differently. I'm not going to put the decals on the bike right now, so if you do have any feedback on how I could improve this, please let me know. I'd like to have a second go at it, and if I could make it better, I definitely will. So let me know what I did wrong or how I can make it better. So that wraps up this video. So I hope you liked it. Give it a like and don't forget to subscribe to the channel so that you can follow the whole rally build project, and hit the bell icon so that you are the first to know when a new video is out. See you next time.